Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, for the precious lives of our loved ones, and for the beautiful state of West Virginia that we are proud to call home. We are so blessed with the ability to come together today, full of hopes, dreams, and ideas of creating a better life for our fellow mountaineers. We ask, Lord, to be with our legislators as they put forth their best works to create a brighter future for our children. Guide their hearts and minds as they make decisions that will impact the lives of all West Virginians today and in the coming generations. Aid them in the task of being fair, just, and strong of heart, so they may lead us in making almost heaven our own heaven on earth, where we are always proud to keep you close to our hearts, Lord. For this and so much more, we are forever grateful. And so it is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. All members and guests will please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning by the gentleman of the 10th, Doug Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, members and guests, join me, please, as we honor the greatest nation in the world, as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Friday, January 17th, 2020.
The gentleman of the 10th, Delegate Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as it has been read.
The gentleman of the 10th asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Further reading of the journal should be dispensed with. Introduction of guests. Introduction to guests. Gentleman of the 13th, Doug Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two very important introductions today. First of all, in the gallery, the West Virginia Professional Educators is an all-inclusive, member-led organization made up of over 1,100 active teachers, counselors, and administrators in 51 West Virginia counties. And if they would please stand as I call your name: David Gladkowski, Libby Surface, Jackie McDaniels, and Joanna Gonch. Please make them welcome. I've got one more introduction. And I'm also honored, Mr. Speaker, to have my grandmother Phyllis here today. She's watching how her government works. Please make her feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 6th, Doug Kelly.
Mr. Speaker, as most of you know, this is Optometry Day here in the at the Capitol, and in the West Gallery behind me are several of our state's finest optometrists. I would like for them to stand and for the House to make them welcome, please.
The gentleman of the 28th, Doug Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Visiting us today here at the Capitol is my niece, Kim Cooper. She's up in the North Gallery. So on behalf of Delegate Pack and myself, I'd like for us to make her feel welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of the 12th, Doug Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of pages here today. It's pretty special. First, if you would, we call Brody Casto. Brody's a student at Evans Elementary. Stand up, Brody. Brody's my grandson. He's a student at Evans Elementary. Dylan Sayre. Dylan's our youngest daughter. With them in the South Gallery is my wife, Libby Westfall, my daughter, Kelsey Casto, and her daughter, Zoe Casto. With the House, please make them feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 21st, Doug Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two of my very favorite constituents with me today in the North Gallery. My parents, Daniel and Debbie Dean, are here. If you would, please make them feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 16th, Doug Mant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have some people here in the West Gallery that are very important to me. They make it possible for me to read bills and see things on my phone. And I would like to introduce some optometrists from Cabell County. We have Dr. Glenn Bailey, Dr. Kayla Campbell, Dr. Bill Ratcliffe, and Dr. Chris Ratcliffe. Would you all please stand and would you all please make them feel welcome? Thank you.
The gentleman, the 59th, Dr. Kump.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two groups of people to introduce. The first is in the North and South Gallery, Christy Ferguson and her three co-conspirators who came all the way down here from Berkeley County and met with me very early in the morning. Could the House please give them a very welcome West Virginia welcome? And the next introduction, but not the last, is my beloved and bodacious wife Cheryl, who's in the North Gallery. She's also the cousin of Kathy Hess Krause, who's running for the West Virginia State Senate. She's the love of my life. Cheryl, not Kathy. She nursed me through my stroke last year, brought me to good health, and continues to be a marvelous work and a wonder. Thank you, Cheryl.
The gentleman, the 10th, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning you've already met my daughter who gave us the prayer this morning. And in the North Gallery, I'd like to introduce her other half, Mr. Chris Shingleton, if he'd stand, please. And I'd also like to introduce two very special pages that I have here. First of all is my personal page, Willow, who is sitting with her mother here on the floor with me. And the other page I have, who is a very special young lady who has been here a number of times, one of my other granddaughters, Bella Grace, and she is somewhere here. She's standing over here. If she would wave, and would the members please make my family feel welcome? Thank you.
The gentleman, the 40th, Dr. Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have two very special guests from Elk Valley Christian School. I have my daughter, Bryn Jeffries, which is a junior, and Blake French, a senior. They are serving as pages today, if they'd stand. And they are being chaperoned by their principal, who's in the West Gallery, if he'd stand, Mr. Mike Wilson, the principal at Elk Valley Christian. Please make them feel welcome.
The gentleman, the 29th, Doug Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With us today from the West Virginia Health Freedom Group is Rachel Clark and Jennifer Oliver, as well as a very good friend of mine, is an optometrist, I believe is here somewhere, from Mercer County, Dr. Brad Lane. If you make them...
The gentleman, the 60th, Doug Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two separate introductions to make, if you don't mind. Here in the North Gallery, I've got my friends Ashley Roby and Barry Holstein. If they would stand, we can recognize them, make them welcome. Also, I'd like to recognize my friends from the Convention of States, Mr. Richard Glaw, Miss Diane Glaw, Mr. Tom Adsit, and Mr. Jay Taylor. If you would stand, let's make them welcome. Thank you, sir.
The gentleman, the 42nd, Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In our West Gallery, Delegate Lavender Bowe and I have two introductions of guests, part of Optometry Day here at the state capitol. If they would stand when I call their name, Dr. Krista Adams and her husband Mark, also Dr. Gary Berno and his wife Karen. Will the House please make them welcome?
The gentleman, the 17th, Doug Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the South Gallery, we have two guests from Cabell County. First is Ken Bannon, who is Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, handles the domestic violence caseload. With him is Shannon Petrie. She's from Branches Domestic Violence Shelter. She's the Director of Systems Advocacy and a member of the Domestic Violence Coalition. If they would stand in the House, please give them a warm welcome.
The gentleman from the 19th, Doug Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and the delegation from Wayne County, we have pages today from Spring Valley High School, Buffalo Middle, and Buffalo Elementary. If they would please stand when I call their name. They are Michelle Fortner, Logan Harris, Caden Maynard, and Charlie Harris. Please give them a round of applause.
The lady in the 50th, Doug Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, I have a special friend, and he's a Fairmont State University student. I think one day he's going to have a seat down here in the House, and I'd like to introduce him. I'd like you to welcome him. It's Zachary Taylor. Would you stand up, Zachary? Answer. Good to see you.
The gentleman from the 20th, Doug Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Mark Dean from the 21st, I'd like to welcome a couple pages here today from Williamson, West Virginia, and they're a freshman at Mingo Central High School. If you'll stand, their names are Brandon Klein and Terry Daniels, and I'd like to thank their chaperone, Brandy Thacker. She'll stand as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 24th, Doug Rodriguero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Tomlin and myself, we have one of our own optometrists today. His name is Ethan Adkins. Would you please stand, and the floor, please make him welcome.
The gentleman from the 5th, Doug Pethel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Here on Optometry Day with us from Wetzel County is Dr. David Harshbarger. I'd ask he stand in the House. Please make him welcome. Thank you.
The lady from the 51st, Dr. Fleschauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to introduce a former intern of mine, Elliot Dotson, if he would please stand. He was an intern for me when he was in high school, and he went to the University of Michigan, and he's now at WVU, and anytime I have a technology problem, I have somebody I can ask for help. So please give a warm welcome to Elliot Dotson.
The gentleman from the 43rd, Doug Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we are joined in the galleries by several of my brothers and sisters with the American Federation of Teachers down here in the People's House today for AFT Lobbying Day. If the House would please make them all feel welcome. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 50th, Doug Angelucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, we have two constituents on behalf of Delegates Caputo and Longstreth as well. We have two constituents from Marion County, and both of them are candidates for the House of Delegates, so we may be seeing them down here on the floor next year. So would Ariane Islam and Jared Powell please stand and let the House make you feel welcomed.
Are there further introduction of guests? If not, the lady from the 49th for an update on the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee substitute for House Bill 4096 has been moved from the special calendar to the House calendar.
Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4207, Department of Administration, exemptions from management services provided by the Fleet Management Division. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Report to be received, bill to be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Joint Resolution 102, providing the West Virginia Legislature rulemaking oversight of the Board of Education. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4058 relating to pharmacy benefit managers. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had in consideration House Bill 2185 relating to the removal of animals left unattended in motor vehicles. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had it in consideration House Bill 4094 continuing to foster care ombudsman. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
The report will be received.
Originating in the Committee on Senior, Children, and Family Issues is House Bill 4414 relating to the selection of language and development of milestones for the deaf and hard of hearing children. This is reported with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Originating in the Committee on Senior, Children, and Family Issues is House Bill 4415 relating to missing and endangered children. It's reported with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources. Are there further reports of standing committees? If not, reports of select committees, messages from the executive, messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 35, limiting civil penalty for littering conviction to $2,000.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 46, defining pepper spray and exempting from definition of deadly weapons.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 140, changing rate at which certain judges are paid for mileage when traveling within state.
Message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 170, alleviating double taxation on foreign income at state level.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 207, creating Prosecuting Attorneys Detectives Act.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 310, updating certain terms used in West Virginia Personal Income Tax Act.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Are there further messages from the Senate? If not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 19, Gold Star Families Highway.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and that each resolution be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady in the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and that each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 4420, creating the Opioid Litigation Fund.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The lady in the 49th asks unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
House Bill 4010, changing the licensing requirements for certain casino employees.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? Chair hears no objections. To jump on the 56, Doug at Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to amend on third. We need to do a technical correction with the effective date.
The gentleman on the 56 asks unanimous consent to offer an amendment to the bill on third reading. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Is the amendment with the clerk?
Delegate Howell moved to amend the bill on page 10, section 4, line 55, after the words effective date of, by striking out the words this article and inserting in lieu thereof the line amendments to this article enacted during the 2020 regular session.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. The gentleman on the 56 to speak to the amendment.
I urge passage.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the amendment as just read by the clerk? If not, those in favor of the amendment will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
House Bill 4010.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? Chair hears no objection. The gentleman on the 56 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to align the terminology used to describe the state oversight of casino employees with current practices. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 2 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4010.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4062.
Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to postpone action 1 day.
Lady from the 49th asks unanimous consent that action on House Bill 4062 be postponed by 1 day. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Action will be postponed 1 day. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4091, allowing for expedited oil and gas well permitting upon payment of applicable expedited fees.
Is there objection to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? Chair hears no objections. The gentleman from the 10th, the 8th, Douglas Anderson, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill creates a process for the Department of Environmental Protection to accept expedited oil and gas well permit applications and permit modifications, which will cost applicants special expedited fees. This bill is substantially the same as the originating Senate Bill 655 from last session. Vertical wells and horizontal deep wells are not covered under this bill. The bill only governs permitting for shallow horizontal wells. The current permitting fee is $10,000 for the initial horizontal well and $5,000 more for each additional leg drilled from a single pad at the same location. A modification application currently has no fee. In addition to the regular fees currently in code, expedited fees will be $20,000 for the initial horizontal well drilled at a location and $10,000 more, and $10,000 for each additional horizontal well drilled on a single pad. The expedited permit modification fee is $5,000 in this legislation. Under the bill, the Department of Environmental Protection must issue expedited permits within 45 days of the submission of the permit application. The time requirement can be extended if the DEP must ask for additional information. After 45 days, the Department of Environmental Protection must refund a daily prorated amount until the fee is reduced to the normal fee amount. No refunds will be paid below the normal fee. Permit modification procedures are similar, but the DEP must first issue an expedited permit modification within 20 days. After 20 days, similar refunds will be due until the fee is reduced to the normal fee amount. 1/2 of the additional expedited fees will be used by the Department of Environmental Protection to process applications up to a $1 million cap annually. The remaining 1/2 of the expedited fees and all fees above the $1 million cap are to be deposited in the Oil and Gas Reclamation Fund for the reclamation and plugging of orphaned oil and gas wells. I urge passage of the bill.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman from the 51st, Douglas Hanson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a good bill. It does 2 really important things. One is it provides additional resources to the DEP in order to expedite the permitting process for oil and gas wells. And the second good thing that it does is that it starts to provide a funding source for the abandoned wells, the orphan wells across the state of West Virginia, like the chair just said. I just wanted to raise 2 issues that I hope we could continue to address in additional legislation related to those specific issues. And these are things that were brought up in discussion at committee. Number 1 is that even with the additional expedited permitting fees for the DEP, their Office of Oil and Gas is underfunded, and they're underfunded substantially. Something, if I recall right, on the order of about $1 million a year. So there's going to have to be some fix to that problem so that the DEP can have the resources they need to properly regulate oil and gas wells. The second thing I think we need to take into account is that there are thousands of these orphan and abandoned gas wells across the state of West Virginia. And while this bill will raise some funds to start addressing that problem, it's not enough. And further, we have no new legislation that we've seen yet that's going to prevent the creation of new orphan wells across West Virginia. So I hope that we can address both of those issues during this session. But in the meantime, this bill is a step in the right direction and one that I hope everybody supports.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 98 ayes, 0 nays, 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4091.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Anderson moves to amend the title.
The question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of the title amendment will say aye. Any opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4017, establishing country roads accountability and transparency.
Are there amendments?
No.
If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4020, removing authority of municipalities to require occupational licensure if licensure for the occupation is required by the state.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Howell moves to amend the bill.
Clerk will read the amendment.
On page 1, section 20, line 1, after the phrase provided by this, by striking out the word article and inserting in lieu thereof the word chapter.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. Are there members who wish to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, those in favor will say aye. Any opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4108.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4130, relating to competitive bidding for government construction contracts arising out of declared states of emergency.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Schott moves to amend the bill. On page 2, section 1A, line 11, following the word unable by striking the word to and inserting in lieu thereof or.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. The gentleman, the 27th, Delegate Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is purely technical amendment. The current reading of the sentence is, and if that vendor is unwilling to perform, this just makes it unable or unwilling to perform. Technical amendment, I urge its adoption.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as just read by the clerk. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
Delegate Fleischauer and Summers moves to amend the bill on page 2, section 1A, lines 21 through 24 by striking out subsection D in its entirety and inserting in lieu thereof the following. D, for projects limited to the construction or replacement of one or more residential dwellings, the state agency responsible for overseeing the work may, in its discretion, choose not to require an entity to whom the contract is awarded to furnish payment or performance bonds, but only if it clearly indicates that the solicitation forbids that payment or performance bond will not be required.
The question is on adoption of the amendment. The lady from the 51st, Delegate Fleischauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this amendment does is the way the law is currently written, it allows the agency to waive payment or performance bonds in the construction of these flooding projects. And this amendment would limit that waiver only to residential home construction. A lot of the home builders don't have the capacity to do very large performance bonds. And what we're hoping with this amendment is that we will be able to let more contracts out to West Virginia builders, and that we won't be forced to only have one very large out-of-state company doing this flood construction. So many of the parties have been consulted and have agreed to this language, and I urge adoption.
The gentleman, the 15th, Dr. Foster.
Thank you. Well, gentlelady from the 51st yield.
Yes.
Just my question. You said that it'll be residential construction.
Yes.
In the amendment, the term is actual residential dwellings. Is that correct?
Yes.
And my question on that is, in this residential construction, something such as a septic tank, would that be included in the dwelling?
Let me check the language. If it's associated with the dwelling, it's our opinion that it would be included.
Okay.
And it's going to depend on the contract for the dwelling. I think that's what you would go back to.
And my concern is these wage bonds. We want when you have a performance or a payment bond, my concern is that you'll have maybe a difference in the home is under a wage bond, whereas the connection of the sewer system to the city main or the actual use of a septic system wouldn't be included in the same bond.
It's our opinion that it would be part of reestablishing the dwelling, but it's going to maybe depend on whether, and I think that's a really important question, and I would want that to be answered firmly in the affirmative. I think it's going to depend on what kind of, say, if it's a septic system, whether there is a homeowner's septic system. It's going to depend a little bit on each situation.
And kind of my question, just to assuage some of my concerns, would you be interested in reforming the amendment to say after the word dwellings and ancillary structures?
Well, would that include a sewer plant that was connected to several other dwellings? Would that be considered ancillary?
I don't believe it would, because it would be an ancillary to the dwelling, the residential dwelling. And if it would, basically another wording of it could be, if that was part of your concern, you could say, you could list it as, and like after the word dwellings, have and their ancillary structures.
Well, basically, they would not be eligible for, there would be no, they could, performance bond could be waived for the dwelling and the ancillary structure. Is that what you're wanting to accomplish? Because that's what this amendment does. It says you are allowed not to have a performance bond. And so that would be for the dwelling and the ancillary structure. You wouldn't have to have a performance bond.
And that's my intent. Intent is to basically make both of those, anything that is encompassed within basically their ancillary structures of the dwelling to be under the same performance bond rather than having
But this
them be
allows
under
them
different
not to
bonds.
have a performance bond.
Or well, not or to be. Either one way you say it, it would be under the, they would be the same is what the intent of what I'm trying to accomplish is.
Would appurtenances be sufficient for you? Because that would be more clearly tied to the home.
I'm not sure the definition of that word, but that would work.
I think it would work.
Which structures does that pertain to?
Usually something that's attached. Yeah, attached to the dwelling.
Yeah, that would assuage my concern there.
So it would then say one or more residential dwellings or appurtenances
Of those
attached
dwellings.
to it, to them. I'll have the council go make sure that that's okay, but that would be, I'm agreeable to that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to reform our amendment. Lady from Taylor, you're agreeable to reforming the amendment?
Is there objection that the amendment be reformed to include the words or appurtenances after the word dwelling on line 2? Chair hears no objections. Council will please provide the clerk's office with a reformulated version of the amendment. Are there members now who wish to speak to the adoption of the reformed amendment? The gentleman, the 27th, Doug Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill was reviewed by the Committee on the Judiciary. I think the amendment improves the bill. I don't think it's inconsistent with the concerns of the committee, and I would urge its adoption as well.
Are there other members who wish to speak to the amendment? If not, the question before the House is the adoption of the reformed amendment as reformed by the sponsors. Does any member wish to have the reformed amendment read? If not, those in favor of the amendment will say aye. Aye. Any opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Next bill on second reading.
House Bill 4141, requiring the Department of Administration to publish its comprehensive annual financial report by the end of December.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2086, Uniform Real Property Electronic Recording Act.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4077, increasing the amount of the bond required to be posted by proprietary schools.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4119, establishing the crime of torture.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4275, Fire Commission State Fire Code.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4417, relating to permitting professional boards.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4419, relating to the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for our colleagues Delegate Ellington and Delegate Rowe, who I would like to mention to the House is in the hospital after an injury, so if we could keep him in our thoughts.
Are there objections to leaves being granted? Chair hears no objections. Leaves shall be granted. Remarks by members of the House. Remarks by members of the House. Introduction of guests. The gentleman, the 22nd, Delegate Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to introduce our doctor of the day is Bushra Amjad from Charleston, West Virginia, if we would make her feel welcome.
Are there further introductions? If not, miscellaneous business, the gentleman, the 35th, Douglas Scaff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, in case you've noticed, it's been quite quiet back in this area. That's because I'd like to introduce at this time Delegate Robinson's son, Braden Robinson, here to keep his father under control today. Let's give Braden a warm round of applause.
Are there further introductions? Miscellaneous business. If not, then the lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move subject to announcements. The House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. Tuesday.
The lady from the 49th moves that subject to announcements. The House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Are there announcements? Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Rules will meet tomorrow at 10:45 a.m. behind the chamber.
The gentleman of the 10th, Delegate Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. for budget presentations from the Department of Agriculture, following at 4 o'clock a budget hearing with the West Virginia Conservation Agency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of the 35th, Delegate Capito.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on the Judiciary will reconvene today at 3:15 to continue to work our agenda that has been posted. The Democratic members of that committee will meet in the chairman's office at 3 today before the meeting, 3 p.m. for the minority members in the chairman's office. And then tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the committee will meet in the committee room and the agenda will be posted. Thank you.
The gentleman of the 13th, Delegate Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, January 21st at 9 a.m. in the Education Committee room, and the agenda will be posted.
The gentleman of the 45th, Delegate Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A reminder that the Republican members of your Committee on Government Organization will caucus in the Chairman's office today at 3 p.m. And, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 4 p.m. in the House Government Organization Committee room, 215 in the East Wing. The agenda is posted. And, Mr. Speaker, if your Committee on Government Organization does not complete our agenda this afternoon, your Committee on Government Organization will reconvene at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, January 21st. Thank you.
The gentleman of the 35th, Delegate Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance shall meet at 1 p.m. today in the GovOrg office or meeting room, and the agenda has been posted.
The gentleman of the 62nd, Delegate Bibby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security will meet tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. in Government Org. The agenda will be posted.
The gentleman of the 10th, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Energy will meet tomorrow in the Judiciary Committee room at 4 p.m. The agenda is posted.
The gentleman of the 37th, Delegate Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The annual bell ringing for peace for Martin Luther King Jr. Day will be held today on the north side of the Capitol at 12:30. Also, everyone is invited for the street name unveiling, Martin Luther King Jr. Way, which is also Court Street, on the Tidewater side of the mall today at 1 p.m.
The gentleman of the 28th, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources will meet at 1 o'clock today in the Judiciary Committee room, room 418. The agenda is posted.
The lady from the 51st, Dr. Fleischauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of announcements. First, I would like to invite everyone to a press conference today at noon. Delegate Hill and I are going to be hosting a group of family members coming from around the state who are going to talk about the issues they have with being able to afford insulin. That's at noon in the governor's press conference room. And then also I'd like to announce a meeting of the Democratic caucus of the judiciary members at 3 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. And with those on the floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning and song by Pastor Deborah Thomas. She's with the Non-Denominational Fellowship of Pentecostal Ministries in Charleston, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the Senator from Ohio County, Pastor Thomas.
Gracious Father and eternal God, we thank you for today. We thank you for extending your hand of mercy to our Senator, President Carmichael, all the senators, all the staff, everyone that makes this operation great. Now, God, we ask that we continue to bless your name as you continue to bless us. God, allow us to be able to agree to disagree, and at the end of the day, remind us that we are who we are in our respective positions. Now, God, bless everyone. Bless every decision that's made, and we know, God, that if we put you first, that you will take care of everything and put everything in order. Now, God, we thank you for this holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all the other patrons that have been great in this country, God. We give you all the praise and all the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You have a song for us?
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Thank you, Pastor Thomas. That was beautiful. The senator from Ohio County.
Would those in the gallery and those down on the floor please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, January 17th, 2020. The Senate met at 11:05 a.m.
The senator from Wetzel County requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized when your name is called. As guest of the senior senator from the 16th, we have Emily Arnikar. As guest of the senior senator from the 11th, we have Malachi Sommers. As guest of the senior senator from the 7th, senator from Boone County, Andrew Wells. As guest of the senator from Brooke County, we have Rory Stahl and Riley Taylor. As guest of the senator from Harrison County, we have Connor Freeze and Olivia Baker. As guest of the senator from Raleigh County, we have Allison Gross and Malachi Belcher. And as guest of the senator from Wetzel County, we have Joshua Stickle. And they're all standing. If the Senate would give them a warm welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. Further introductions. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it's my pleasure and yours to introduce our West Virginia Academy of Family Practice Doctor of the Day. In the rear of the chamber, we have with us Dr. Bushra Amjad. If you wouldn't mind standing, let the Senate give you a warm welcome.
Further introductions, the senator from Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Located in your presidential gallery, we have 4 individuals from the National Federation of Independent Business. If the Senate if they would stand and be welcome, Craig Givens, Rebecca Hoff, Morris Christian, and Sharon Skikes, if the Senate would make them welcome.
The senator from Braxton County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is your honor as well as mine to introduce a couple of the parents of our pages for Olivia Baker, Matt Barker, and for Connie Freeze, Jennifer Freeze. If they'd stand, the Senate make them welcome. Thank you.
The senator from Raleigh County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Want to recognize the teacher who brought the pages for today, Donald Thomas, up in the North Gallery. Would you stand, please, and let us give him a warm welcome.
Senator from Wetzel County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor today to also to have the father of my page, Joshua. His father, Todd, is here in the gallery somewhere. I don't know where. There he is up there. Let's make him welcome. And also, I'd like to introduce two of the people here with the Optometry Association from my hometown, Dr. Neil Marshall and Dr. David Harshberger. Would they please stand and Senate make them welcome?
The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Ohio and myself, we have a mother and grandmother of our page today. Rory's mom, Dana Stoll, is in the North Chamber, or North Gallery. Dana and I went to high school together. We graduated, I think, 4 years ago it was. And her grandmother, Laura Beckelheimer, is here as well, and her younger sister, Raylan. If they could stand, the Senate make them feel welcome.
The junior senator from the 8th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It's my forever honor to introduce to the Senate my two sons, Richie Lindsay, 8, Patrick Lindsay, 5, who are here with me today because school is canceled or they're out of school. I want to just take a quick moment and thank the doormen and the Senate staff for helping me out this morning. If they could stand and if the Senate can make them feel welcome. Thank you.
The senior senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Jefferson and myself, I'd like to introduce the parents of our page, Emily Arnikar. We have parents, Father William and Mother Robin Arnikar, if they would stand and receive a warm Senate welcome.
The senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the junior senator from Nicholas County and me, I'd like to introduce our page from Randolph County, Malachi Summers, and his accompanied by his mother, who's seated in the presidential gallery, Heather Summers. Would you please make them welcome?
The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Logan, we're very pleased to have the chaperone of Page, Andrew, his father, Randy Wells. If he would stand, the Senate make him welcome.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf and the senator from Kanawha, today in the President's Gallery, we have with us today some doctors from the West Virginia Association of Optometric Physicians, and I would like for them to stand. They are here today from all over the state to promote the 2020 as the year of the eye exam for West Virginians of all ages. So if they would stand, may the Senate make them welcome.
The senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the Senate would join me in a warm welcome in the North Gallery. My wife is here today, Tanya Pitzelbarger. She'd stand. Thank you.
Are there further introductions? The senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of all the senators, I'd like to welcome back our intern from last year who worked in government organization, Nathan Burdett, if he would stand. The members welcome him back.
The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Along with Nathan, there is a group from American First Prosperity that is here. I would like them to please stand so the Senate can make them feel welcome.
Are there further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2602, including possession of known stolen property and the offense of receiving or transferring stolen property.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2679 relating to state-issued identification cards.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2696 creating an additional index system for state-owned lands.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
House Bill 2922 relating to requirements to obtain a final order of discharge and dismissal for possession of opiates or opioids.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2924 permitting the West Virginia Tourism Office to decide to contract with Division of Highways to sell advertising space on the WV511 website.
The message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4042 requiring agencies exempt from some or all of state purchasing requirements to adopt procedural rules.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization. Are there further messages from the House?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
There are none.
Reports from select committees?
There are none.
Introduction of bills. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 535 through Senate Bill 549 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
Junior senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 535 through Senate Bill number 549 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Joint Resolution 6 by Senator Rucker, Supervision of Free Schools Modification Amendment.
Resolution will be received and referred to Committee on Judiciary and then to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Resolution 10 by Senators Prezioso, Beach, Seipold, Smith, Clements, and Maroney, designating January 21, 2020 as West Virginia University Day.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over 1 day. Are there further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Senate Resolution 9 designating January 20th, 2020 as Down Syndrome Awareness Day.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be put up on its adoption.
Senior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 9 designating January 20th, 2020 as Down Syndrome Awareness Day.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very honored once again to help recognize these special families involved in the Down Syndrome Network of West Virginia. About 6,000 babies with Down syndrome are born in the United States each year. That means that 1 in every 700 people is living with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome have an extra portion of chromosome 21 present in all or some of their cells. This genetic material alters development and causes characteristics we see in Down syndrome. It is the most frequent cause of mild to moderate intellectual disability, and it occurs in all ethnic and economic groups. If you get to know someone with Down syndrome, you'll find that they have a unique personality and interest. They want to learn, they want to have fun, to be respectful, and to find their place in the world, just like everyone else. I hope we will always remember that our special guests and their families are greatly affected by the decisions that we make in this chamber. Everyone visiting us today appreciates the governor putting in his budget for clearing the waiting list for the IDD waiver. As a legislature, we must keep all the important fundings in our final budgets. I believe everyone in this chamber will do the right thing for more than the thousands who are waiting, including all of our citizens with us today. On behalf of these families, I thank you for that support. It's an exciting time for our children with intellectual and development disabilities. More West Virginians with Down syndrome are participating in our society, including in our schools and in our workforce. I want to encourage each of you to review and support the creation of a bill that we have introduced, Senate Bill 253. The task force, it is a task force that's created to work to promote the expectations that citizens and others with challenges are valued members of our state workforce. We know that many can meet the same employment responsibilities as others working age adults when they are provided with the proper education and support. The Employment First Task Force will work to help make our citizens find meaningful jobs. Will you please join me in welcoming the families of the Down Syndrome Network of West Virginia? Mr. President, I urge passage of the resolution.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Is there further unfinished business?
No, sir.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 16, creating Protect Our Right to Unite Act. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 16 is very similar to a bill that we passed last year out of the Senate. The bill would create a new article in the state code embedded in Chapter 1, designated as Article 7, and the new article would have 4 sections in it. The first section is just a description of the legislative purpose, with reference in the section to the case of NAACP versus Alabama ex rel. Patterson. It's a U.S. Supreme Court case from 1958. The purpose of this bill is to protect membership and donor information from agencies of the government and from public disclosure by agencies of the government, except where necessary. Section 2 of the Act contains definitions, and there are 3 terms that are defined in the Act. The first is donor or membership information. The second is individual, and the third definition is a definition of public agency. The third section of the Act is the operative language that protects privacy of association information, protecting the information related to freedom of association. So what it says is the operative language is a public agency may not require a tax-exempt organization under 26 U.S.C. Section 501c. And there's, I think we've determined 29 501c's types of organizations with donor membership information. Public agencies are not supposed to ask for it, and if a public agency has it for some reason under subsection B, they're not to disclose it. Now, there are exceptions. We exclude everything that's covered by the state election laws, so campaign finance laws, anything that's, any disclosure that's permitted under Chapter 3 is accepted, as well as anything under Chapter 6B of our code, which is the West Virginia Ethics Act. Section 4 of the Act provides for civil remedies. So a person may file legal action to obtain or try to obtain an injunction, seek to enjoin public disclosure in violation of this Act. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 42, permitting faith-based electives and classroom drug prevention programs. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that actually, it takes longer to describe it than what it actually is. It passed the Senate last year, 33-1. This bill allows county boards to include faith-based electives for drug awareness in classrooms in their comprehensive drug awareness and prevention programs, and requires the state board to promulgate a rule on how the faith-based electives can be offered in a way that is consistent with constitutional requirements. I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 225, empowering municipalities to enact adopt-a-street programs. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 225 adds a single new section of code that would allow municipalities to enact adopt-a-street programs if they so choose. Similar to the Adopt a Highway program, the bill would allow various volunteer organizations to adopt a municipal street for a period of 2 years. The organization would be committed to perform 3 cleanups a year over the adoption period. Because it is a municipal program, the bill is anticipated to have no impact on state cost or revenue. I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? If not, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there being 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills on third reading?
There are none.
Bills on second reading?
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 125, prohibiting victim from being subjected to certain physical examinations for sexual offenses. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 217, requiring DHHR collaborate with Workforce Development Board and West Virginia Division of Personnel for job placement. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 323, authorizing Department of Administration promulgate legislative rules. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Are there further bills on second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading? Junior Senator from the 17th. Why don't you just go ahead and do it?
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 192, relating to West Virginia Secondary Schools Activity Commission audits. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Yeah, it's unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 297, requiring Board of Education create home economics course. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Senate Bill 307, correcting code citation relating to certain tax liens. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Senate Bill 322, relating to pre-qualifications for state contract vendors. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading?
No, sir.
Introduction of guest. Remarks by members of the Senate. The Senator from Mercer County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to call attention to what I think is a very, very important economic issue. As you know, I'm a coal guy. I was born and raised and lived my whole life in coal country, and I'll forever do everything I can to protect the coal industry. Coal has been probably West Virginia's best friend for over 100 years, but recently we found a new best friend, and that's the natural gas industry. Thanks to billions of dollars of investment and lots of scientific research, gas may very well be as important to West Virginia for the next 100 years as coal has been in the past 100 years. But recently, the Finance Committee was given some information on the coal industry sales of natural gas. I mean, not coal industry, but natural gas industry sales. Comparing West Virginia to Pennsylvania and Ohio. And runs from, it's a bar chart that runs from 2008 to 2018. I found this information to be quite disturbing because if you look at the chart, and I placed a copy of this chart on everybody's desk, the green bars are West Virginia, the blue bars are Ohio, and the orange bars are Pennsylvania. And if you look at the orange bars, they go through the ceiling. The others don't. So I started studying this information, and I found that, well, the heading on the chart says West Virginia production up 22.1% per year average. Woohoo, that sounds great, right? If you look at the numbers, I had to approximate the 2008 numbers because the chart was too small to put the actual numbers on the chart. They only showed the bars. But if you track the actual numbers, I did a calculation. If you look on the second page, I did a comparison of the percentage of sales, or you might use the term share of market, that West Virginia got compared to the other states. And I found that West Virginia was up 6 times in that 10 years. Sounds really wonderful. However, Pennsylvania or Ohio was up 24 times their 2008 sales. Pennsylvania was up 31 times their 2008 sales. And I'm disturbed by this because something's wrong. We don't have something right here in West Virginia. We know that severance tax is higher in West Virginia. We know that pipelines are not built, which will help us transmit more quantity to the market. We know that property taxes are part of the tax structure of the natural gas industry, but we don't know how significant that is. But in order to put this in a frame of reference, on that page 2, I put down the percentage. I put down the percentage of the market share that we have in 2008 and compared it to 2018. West Virginia in 2008 had 50% of the market. Pennsylvania had 1/3. Ohio had 1/6. Now the numbers have reversed. In 2018, West Virginia has 1/6. Pennsylvania has 60%, and Ohio has 24%. So Pennsylvania increased their sales by almost 80%. Ohio increased their sales by almost 40%. We decreased our sales by 2/3. And I think this could be one of the most significant issues that we need to look at for the next 50 years, 100 years. I don't know what the solution to this problem is, but it's obvious that I've seen people drive 20 miles for 2 cents a gallon off of gas. I've seen people change grocery stores because of a discount on peanut butter, for example. Gas companies don't have to go anywhere to change their market volume. All they have to do is open a valve in Pennsylvania and close one in West Virginia. So, Mr. President, with your approval, I'm going to look into this. I invite anyone here who wants to help me with this, to understand this problem, to know what to do. We have to know what we did wrong in the past that caused this trend to just take what the gas industry handed us on a silver platter and send it to our neighboring states. The gas industry is not our problem here. It's Pennsylvania that's our problem here. There's something going on that we need to find out about, and I think if we can fix it, the sooner we do it, the better. And what we do will depend on how successful we are at growing our economy for the next 50 or 100 years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the remarks by the Senator from Mercer be placed in the appendix of the Journal.
Without objection, so ordered. The Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I just want to take a moment. I'd be remiss in not taking a moment on Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, not to recognize the community and city leadership of Charleston, West Virginia. As most of you know or may not know, the city recently bestowed the honorary title or the honorary name of Martin Luther King Jr. on Court Street. It was a divisive and controversial issue when it was first brought to the attention of the city many months ago. But through the leadership of the city and community leaders, they were able to work out a compromise. And if I could just take a second to explain what as I understand the compromise to have been, which is great value to any legislative body and trying to work towards a goal. The first was deciding to make Martin Luther King Jr. a name of a street. There was some pushback because Martin Luther King Jr. is not a West Virginia resident, was not from West Virginia. And we are lucky in Charleston to have folks like Dallas Staples and Ivan Lee who are African American leaders, and they should have a street named after them. But it's a lesson in humility because those individuals passed on that opportunity and said, no, but for Martin Luther King Jr., I would not have been the chief of police of Charleston. So I just think that's amazing, and it's something that we as leaders of the legislature and our communities need to keep in mind. The second was the compromise, the honorary name as opposed to the name of Court Street. The African American community in Charleston, West Virginia felt like they needed to have a street named after Martin Luther King Jr., in part because the Triangle District here in Charleston, in the name of progress, when they built the mall and they bring the interstate through, the Triangle District, which was the African American district here in Charleston, was dispersed and broken up. They believed in part because they had no say in the action. So that's why it was important to them. But of course, once they brought that to the fore, there were folks on Court Street today, who believed that the Triangle District not only included African Americans, but Lebanese Americans and all types of people that should be represented. And they believed that Court Street should remain Court Street. And so a beautiful compromise was made. So instead of naming Court Street Martin Luther King Jr., it received the honorary title of Martin Luther King Jr. So all parties were able to walk away with something, with a piece of their history recognized in the city of Charleston. And I believe on this day especially, when we're talking about the virtues of justice, equality, and peace, we need to keep that in mind, not just in Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, but everything that we do as elected officials on behalf of the people we represent. And I want to commend specifically City Councilwoman Cook, separately, and Hoover and Farr, who brought it to the fore on City Council, and community leaders Dallas Staples, Ivan Lee, and Kitty Dooley, who brought this and made this whole. If you're interested in going to the renaming today, it's at 1 o'clock on Donnelly Street. Thank you.
Further remarks? Further remarks? The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just request unanimous consent that the remarks by the senior senator from the 8th on Senate Resolution 9 be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize to everybody today. I have a bill that I've been circulating and I've not been able to get to everybody. But last summer, we had a West Virginia state trooper that was shot in the line of duty. And he was wearing his vest, but the vest that they procured for troopers would only would stop a handgun, or most handgun bullets. He was shot with a high-powered rifle. And his father came to me in August or September and asked me if I could run a bill that we could provide vests for them, a standard issue, that they would wear over top their other vests that they wear under their shirt. And I said I'd be happy to do that. Now, these vests are quite heavy because they stop a high-powered rifle. They have two 60-pound ceramic plates, and they would keep them in their trunk in the event they were involved in engagement. Then they'd put them on. And I've included the West Virginia State Troopers and our natural resource police officers, because these guys face long guns about every day of their career. So if you have time, stop by and you can sign on. If not, check the bills to be introduced tomorrow and it'll be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? The senator from Raleigh County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, I was able to share with you one of our high school graduates, seniors, that had gotten a 36 composite on the ACT. We have a couple of our students here today that are also pages. Michaela Belcher, she was able to receive 27 on hers, and then Allison hasn't taken her ACT yet. But I felt like I maybe left a wrong impression. We have students in our school that get into teens also. So it's not just all of those that excel. There is a balance because we're trying to help all of our West Virginia students to be lifted up. I would sure like to see everybody in the education realm be focused on the outcome and the fruit that comes from our system, education system, not just trying to put some other little program in to keep everybody busy. I think we would sure benefit if we could focus on those things that are on the other side, not just what we're doing presently. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Further remarks? The senator from Wetzel County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't stand today and say that we need to keep our friend Jay Eckert in our prayers and thoughts today as he undergoes this cancer surgery.
Thank you. Further remarks? Further remarks? Not miscellaneous business, the junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet this afternoon at 3 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room in the West Wing.
Further announcements? The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Military will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. in room 208 West. The agenda has been posted.
Senator from Wetzel County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and 2:51 m.
Further announcements? The senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Natural Resources will meet today at 1 p.m. in 208 West. Thank you.
Further, junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Finance Committee room for budget hearings from the Department of Education, the Higher Education Policy Commission, and Community and Technical Colleges.
Further announcements. The senator from Wood County.
Mr. Chairman, your Committee on Banking and Insurance will not meet today.
Are there further announcements? Further announcements. If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.